Welcome to CSGuitars, the science of loud. I've got a little taste of Italy for you today in the form of these new Torino Audio organic pedals. They are all discrete analog circuits with minimum active components, making them a raw and rustic alternative to the ICs and digital technology of the modern electronics industry. With a deliberately retro look, modular DIY functionality and circuits based off of Torino Audio's organic concept, these are a breath of fresh air for all you tone hunters still chasing great sounding, no frills analog effects. Let's take a closer look. The organic range of pedals approaches circuit design from a minimalist analog perspective. What's the fewest number of discrete active components that we can use to achieve this circuit design, they ponder. Oh, and we can't use ICs because that's cheating. And no buffers either. The idea is to retain the interaction between guitar pickup impedance and the rest of your signal chain. Guitars are most dynamic when plugged straight into the front of a valve amplifier, which are designed to work with the high impedance signal coming from a guitar pickup. Active buffers in pedals reduce the impedance of the signal, which is great if you want a consistent sound regardless of cable lengths and so forth, but it does necessarily mean forgoing some of that magic you get when plugging straight into an amp. The more pieces of active circuitry you place between your guitar and your amplifier, the less that raw interaction carries across to the speaker. However, pedals are great, so why don't we try and design them in a way that helps retain that connection? Note that minimalist design in this regard doesn't necessarily equate to being easy to design. Easy would be to use all of the integrated circuits, op-amps and active componentry that the modern day has to offer. It's more challenging to make these sort of things out of discrete components, and harder still to impose a 5 transistor maximum limit upon yourself. For context, the op-amp in a Tube Screamer contains 15 transistors alone before you start counting any others on the board, so mad props to the Torino guys for flexing those muscles and showing what excellent circuit designers they actually are. So what exists in this range? Well, I've got 3 of the 6 pedals here to demonstrate, including Meat, a high-gain JCM 800 style preamp, Crumble, a germanium-based fuzz, and CabSim, an incredibly clever recreation of the reactivity of a speaker done entirely in analog components. Complementing the 70s hi-fi throwback aesthetic, these pedals have a modular option. The circuit boards are mounted directly to the top panel of the brushed aluminium housing. The attention to detail of having the colours of the circuit boards match the colours of the screen print is a nice touch which flourishes a well-considered design. A longer base plate and some internal connecting pins between the circuit boards allows the user to construct a signal chain of multiple effects housed within the one box. When Voltron together in this fashion, the pedals share a single power socket. Being circuits with very few active electronics, they're not exactly drawing a lot of current, so it's completely reasonable to power up to 5 of these boards from one outlet on your pedal power supply. Each pedal has the same look and layout to the controls, making it easy to navigate all once you've learned one. The fuzz and distortion have their gain, level and tone controls located in the same place, and that toggle engages different gain structures for both. I want to focus mainly on the Meat. This is supposed to be a pseudo recreation of a JCM 800 preamp, but using discrete FETs for the gain stages rather than valves. Running this into the effects return of my EL34 loaded Victory Kraken should give us the best representation of the intended sound, and we'll get to see if this really does sound like a British rock stack and has that all-important touch sensitivity. The Crumble will be used in supporting role as a fuzz boost. Feeding a fuzz into a British-style preamp is a classic trick for getting high-gain sounds, which should take us anywhere from Hendrix to doom metal, so we'll see if the combination of these 2 pedals can get us close to that. I've also got target mids in the loop of the attenuator to give a tasty mid boost, and you'll be able to hear what happens when we reinforce those frequencies. On to the organic cab sim, we have something which is remarkably unique. The vast majority of other cabinet simulation methods on the market today are digital. They model the response of a speaker, cabinet and microphone digitally in order to recreate the sound of a particular speaker box. Cab sim here is not modelling, profiling or even simulating in the digital context that we are most familiar with. Rather, it's taking analog components and using them to recreate the reactive qualities of a speaker in an analog circuit. To accomplish this, one must know a lot about the physics of how a speaker works. Its capacitive reactance, the resistive, inductive and capacitive elements, as well as other various parameters. Coming from a lineage of speaker design, it's no surprise why the designers took this approach. Being a cab sim, you'd want this last in your signal chain, after a preamp pedal to emulate the sound of a power amp and speaker so you can send this directly to your interface or front of house, foregoing using an amplifier entirely. The controls offer a decent degree of customization to the sound. Box changes the size of the speaker enclosure, essentially going from closed back to an open backed sound. This will affect the bass response, as a closed back speaker has much tighter bass sound than a more airy open back. Axis is equivalent to your microphone placement. Hard left, and it's like the microphone's pointing directly at the centre of the speaker, and the more you turn it right, the more the microphone turns towards the edge of the speaker cone, essentially going from bright to dark sound. Scoop introduces elements of the typical mid-scoop that you'll find in the tone stack of many valve amplifiers, which help to mitigate for a very mid-heavy preamp to balance the sound. Since you'll be foregoing a real amplifier using a cab sim, it's good to have this level of controllability. The toggle selects different components which replicate different magnet types found on speakers of different eras. Alnico, ferrite and high-power oversized 80s magnets are all represented here. Overall, there's a great deal of customization in this cabinet simulator that, once understood, is far more intuitive than flicking through 100 IRs trying to find the one that sounds best. Being able to change the physical parameters of the cabinet on the fly is something I only wish I could do with the real thing. If the concept behind these Torino audio pedals interests you and you like what you've heard in this video, then you can find out more about them at torinoaudio.com. At the time of posting, there is a Kickstarter campaign live to raise the required funds to get these circuit boards into production at their facility in Turin and get the ball rolling on the manufacture of these pedals. The link to the Kickstarter will be in the description of this video should you want to get yourself one or two of these pedals and help support them in that effort. But that's all for now, guys. Keep it loud, and I'll see you later.